I was halfway through microwaving leftover pad thai when the front door slammed shut. Cassie's dramatic voice bounced down the hallway like she was announcing royalty. "He's here!" she called, followed by the sound of a suitcase thunking against the floor. I rolled my eyes and took a cautious sniff of the noodles. Questionable, but edible. "Who's here?" I asked as she burst into the kitchen, cheeks flushed, dark curls frizzing like they always did when she was excited. "My brother?" she said like it was obvious. "Ethan. I told you he's crashing with us for a few weeks." I froze, chopsticks hovering midair. "That was today?" Cassie blinked, then grinned sheepishly. I definitely mentioned it. She hadn't, at least not in any way that registered. Between her endless monologues about rehearsals, costume drama, and her latest Tinder catastrophe, I sighed. Living with Cassie was like signing up for a year-round improv show you didn't audition for. Before I could respond, he walked in. Ethan. And suddenly, my microwave pad thai seemed far less interesting. He looked nothing like Cassie. Taller, broader, with that easy kind of smile that said he was used to charming people without trying too hard. Faded jeans, dark gray Henley shirt, scruffy jaw, soft hazel eyes. The kind of guy who probably helped old ladies carry groceries and never ghosted anyone. "Hey," he said, setting his duffel down and offering a hand. "Ethan?" "I know," I said, then instantly regretted it. "I mean, Cassie told me. I'm Jamie." His handshake was warm, confident. I let go too quickly. He looked around. "Nice place. Smells like burnt soy sauce and regret." Cassie snorted. "That's just Jamie's cooking." "Charming," I muttered, grabbing my food and retreating to the kitchen table. Cassie launched into a tour of the apartment like we weren't all standing in a 900-square-foot two-bedroom with paper-thin walls and IKEA furniture held together by spite. Ethan nodded politely, following her from kitchen to couch to his temporary room, aka the office, which had been hastily transformed with an air mattress and an extra blanket from the linen closet. "Thanks again for letting me crash here," he said when they returned. "Yeah, no problem," I said, keeping my tone casual. I didn't ask why he needed to crash. Didn't ask why a 30-something man with perfect stubble was suddenly homeless. I wasn't trying to get involved. I didn't do involved. Not anymore. That night, I lay in bed and tried not to think about the way Ethan's shirt clung to his chest, or the fact that I'd caught him brushing his teeth in the bathroom with his shirt off, or how he smelled like cedarwood and rain when he passed by me in the hall. Nope. Off limits. He was Cassie's brother. Straight, probably. Plus, he had that golden retriever energy I found vaguely exhausting. Too cheerful. Too open. Not my type. I liked boundaries, clarity. I didn't like messy complications. And a recently single, ridiculously attractive house guest sleeping one door down definitely qualified. Still, it was hard to ignore him. He was always around. Cooking eggs in the morning. Watching reruns of The Office in the living room. Tapping away at his laptop on the couch like he belonged here. He and Cassie bantered constantly, like siblings in a sitcom. But it was never annoying. They had this easy rhythm. She'd tease, he'd mock back, and I'd silently sip my coffee and pretend not to be watching from behind my Kindle. Every time Ethan tried to loop me into the conversation, I'd keep it short. Shrug, nod, walk away. I figured if I kept my distance, the weeks would pass quietly. But that was before the night everything changed. Before I realized that Ethan wasn't just Cassie's brother. He wasn't just charming or hot or annoyingly good at making omelets. He was something else entirely, and I was in a lot more trouble than I thought. The first week was manageable. I kept my head down, my earbuds in, and my personal bubble firmly intact. Ethan, for his part, was polite, cheerful, and weirdly domestic. He did dishes without being asked, watered Cassie's dying snake plant, and somehow managed to make our crappy kitchen smell like garlic in heaven whenever he cooked. The problem was, he was always there, and our apartment was not designed for 3 adults. We started bumping into each other in the kitchen more than I liked. One morning, I reached for the coffee pot just as he did. Our fingers brushed. I pulled my hand back like the glass had burned me. "Sorry," I muttered, eyes on the floor. "No worries," he said with a grin, handing me a mug. His fingers lingered a beat too long on mine. My heart did this dumb, fluttery thing I immediately shoved back down. It was just coffee. Calm down. That same evening, I came out of the shower, towel slung low on my hips, only to find Ethan shirtless in the hallway, sipping water straight from the jug. His hair was damp from a recent run, and there was a single bead of sweat rolling slowly down his chest. I froze. He looked up. "Hey." "Hey," I said, voice an octave too high. I pivoted like a soldier on parade and locked myself in my room. Before I could stare any longer. Back pressed to the door, I closed my eyes. Nope. Not looking. Not happening. One Thursday night, we ended up watching TV together because Cassie wasn't home and I was too tired to retreat. I plopped on the far side of the couch with my laptop, trying to look busy. Ethan sat at the other end, barefoot, legs stretched out, remote in hand. He glanced over. "You good with Brooklyn Nine-Nine?" "Sure." I kept my eyes on the screen. I could feel him beside me, his arm draped over the back of the couch. Too close. Too warm. A few episodes in, he leaned over to grab his water bottle, and his knee brushed mine. He didn't move it. Neither did I. What was this? I didn't date roommates. I didn't flirt with straight guys. I definitely didn't catch feelings for charming, emotionally available men who left their towel on the bathroom floor but folded all the kitchen towels into perfect thirds. This was nothing. Except it wasn't. The worst moment happened during breakfast. He was making scrambled eggs, humming under his breath. I was at the counter, scrolling my phone and pretending to be indifferent. He slid a plate toward me without asking. I glanced up, surprised. "Thanks," I said. "No problem." He held up a glass. "Juice?" "Sure." He poured it and passed it to me, but our fingers met again, clinking awkwardly against the glass. This time the touch stayed. Just for a second too long. He looked at me. I looked away. It was the kind of touch that said, "I see you," the kind that made my stomach clench. Thanks," I said, pulling my hand back like I'd touched a live wire. I stared hard at my eggs. Ethan didn't say anything, but I could feel his eyes lingering. I didn't look up again until he left the kitchen. Friday night, Cassie dropped the bomb. "I'm heading to Philly for the weekend. Jason's show is opening, and I promised I'd be there." I blinked. "Wait, this weekend?" "Yeah, I told you." "No, you didn't." "Didn't I?" she asked, already packing an overnight bag like a tornado. "Anyway, Ethan's here, so you won't be alone." Perfect. Just what I needed. 2 full days alone with the man I was desperately trying not to fantasize about. "Don't burn the apartment down," she said with a wink as she slammed the door behind her. By Saturday morning, the apartment felt different. Quieter. Intimate in a way that made my skin buzz. Ethan was sprawled on the couch in sweatpants and a white t-shirt, reading something on his phone, his socked feet tucked under him like he lived here. Like he belonged. I hovered in the kitchen, unsure whether to hide or join him. Eventually, I sat on the arm of the couch, scrolling my own feed, pretending not to sneak glances. He looked up. "You always that quiet?" "I'm just not a morning person," I said. "It's noon." "Exactly," he chuckled. "Want to order lunch? My treat." I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." We ended up sharing Thai from The Good Place and watching old SNL sketches, laughing at the same bits, throwing sarcastic comments back and forth. I forgot, for a second, how hard I was trying to keep my walls up. I forgot to keep distance. At one point, he nudged my arm with his. "You know, you're kind of funny when you're not brooding." "I don't brood." "You totally brood." I'm just quiet. Well, he said, eyes holding mine a little too long. I like quiet. And just like that, something shifted. The space between us crackled. His leg was warm against mine again. I didn't move it this time either. I didn't know what was happening. But I knew this. If Cassie came home early, she'd walk into something that wasn't quite friendship anymore. Not even close. It started with pasta. I'd offered to cook, half out of politeness, half because I needed something to do with my hands. Ethan hovered in the kitchen with a bottle of wine and that relaxed posture of his, like he was made for domestic spaces. He kept leaning against things, the counter, the fridge, the doorway, like his entire body was a casual invitation. "Need help?" he asked, swirling the wine in one hand. "No," I said too quickly. "I've got it." He didn't move, just smiled and watched while I chopped garlic like it had personally offended me. "You always cook when you're stressed?" he asked. "I'm not stressed." "Right. Hence the murder speed knife skills." I shot him a look. "You're very observant. Comes with being the middle child. Always watching, rarely heard." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I stirred the sauce instead. He moved beside me and set 2 glasses on the counter, pouring the wine with an ease that made me feel weirdly self-conscious. He handed me one. Our fingers didn't touch this time. I kind of wished they had. 2 edible results, he said, raising his glass. I smirked. "I'm an excellent cook, thank you." He clinked his glass to mine. "Prove it." Over dinner, the conversation shifted into something deeper. The kind of talk you only have with one lamp on, half a bottle of wine in, and nowhere else to be. "So," I asked, halfway through my second glass, "you still living in Boston?" He nodded, then shook his head. "Was. Moved out of my place last month. That's why I'm here." I waited. He exhaled. "Breakup. 5 years down the drain. We were going to buy a house. Then suddenly, he wasn't sure he saw a future with me anymore." I blinked. "He?" Ethan didn't flinch, just sipped his wine. "Yeah." "You seem surprised." I scrambled to sound casual. I didn't think." "It's fine," he said gently. "I don't really advertise it. But yeah, I've dated guys. Girls, too. Whoever fits, I guess." My heart tripped over itself. I took a long drink, hoping it would drown the spike of heat in my chest. "So, Cassie knows?" "She figured it out before I did," he said, laughing softly. "She caught me kissing a guy at my college graduation party. She was more excited than shocked, said it gave her an excuse to stop trying to set me up with every yoga instructor she meets." "Sounds about right," I said, smiling despite myself. He leaned, back in his chair and studied me, eyes unreadable. "What about you?" "What about me?" "You seeing anyone?" I looked away. "Not really." "That's not a no." I picked at my napkin. "I've dated. Nothing serious lately." He didn't push, just nodded, as if that told him everything. He needed to know. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable, just thick with unspoken things. The wine bottle was nearly empty now. The candles Cassie insisted we keep on the table flickered like they knew something I didn't. Ethan reached over and topped off my glass with what was left. "Careful," I said. "I'll start thinking you're trying to get me drunk." His smile curved, slow, and crooked. "Would that be a bad thing?" The words landed with a thud in my chest. I stared at him. He didn't break eye contact. His tone was teasing, but something else shimmered underneath. A tension neither of us named. Was he flirting? Was I imagining it? "You really are hard to read," he said quietly. "So are you." "Not really," he said. "I'm usually pretty upfront. People just don't always listen." He stood up and began clearing the table, breaking the moment like it hadn't just stretched something inside me until it ached. I sat there, heart pounding, watching him rinse dishes like nothing had happened. Maybe it hadn't. Maybe I'd made it up, twisted a friendly smile, a shared bottle of wine, into something it wasn't. But the way he'd looked at me, that wasn't nothing. That was something. And for the first time since he moved in, I didn't want to shut the door between our rooms that night. I wanted to leave it open, just a crack, just enough. The rain started sometime around 8. It wasn't a polite drizzle. It was the kind of rain that hammered the windows and turned the city into a blur of silver and shadows. Inside, everything felt closer, warmer, dimmer. Ethan had made popcorn and queued up a movie, some old noir flick with sharp suits and slow dialogue. I wasn't really watching it. Not really. We were on the couch, the two of us tucked under the same oversized throw blanket Cassie had left behind. His foot nudged mine occasionally. Our thighs were pressed together, close enough to notice the warmth, close enough to feel each shift in breath, in muscle. The only light in the apartment came from the TV and the muted kitchen lamp we'd left, on by accident. I didn't move to switch it off. The sound of rain filled the silences between us. There was something about it, that steady rhythm on the windows, that made the space between our bodies feel charged, like static clinging to cotton. Halfway through the film, Ethan leaned in to grab another handful of popcorn and his arm brushed mine. He didn't move away this time. He settled in closer. Our sides touched. My breath hitched. He didn't miss it. "Cold?" he asked, his voice low. "No," I said, but my voice barely came out. It didn't sound like me. He didn't speak for a minute. Just stared ahead at the screen, even though I could feel him watching me from the corner of his eye. The kind of looking people do when they've made up their minds and are waiting for you to catch up. Then, slowly, like he was moving through water, he reached up and brushed something from my cheek. Maybe a crumb. Maybe nothing. His fingers lingered. Soft, gentle, testing. I turned to him, met his eyes. "Ethan." He didn't pull away. "Yeah?" I thought. I swallowed. "I thought you were straight." A pause. Then, with a soft exhale, "I'm not." The words hung in the air like thunder that hadn't quite struck. And then, I don't know who moved first. Maybe him. Maybe me. Maybe it was inevitable. His lips found mine. Slow. Questioning. Like a door being unlocked inch by inch. I froze for a heartbeat. Then I leaned in. The second kiss wasn't gentle. It was fire. All the tension that had built up over days, weeks, crashed over us at once. His hands were in my hair, mine tangled in the fabric of his t-shirt. The blanket slipped off our laps and hit the floor, forgotten. The sound of the movie kept playing in the background, but we weren't watching anymore. Ethan kissed like he meant it. Like he needed it. Like he'd been waiting for this just as long as I had, but didn't know how to say it until now. And I kissed him back like I'd been holding my breath for years. We pulled apart just long enough to look at each. Other eyes wide, breath ragged. I saw it in his expression then. Uncertainty, yes, but something else too. Longing. I nodded. Barely. That was all it took. He stood and offered his hand. I took it. The walk to my bedroom felt unreal. Like stepping into a version of my life I didn't recognize. One I never thought I'd be brave enough to live. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted again, quieter, more careful. His hands were back on me, but slower now, exploring, learning. My shirt hit the floor, then his. Skin against skin, warm and new and electric. He kissed along my jaw, down my throat. Every place his lips touched lit me up. I pulled. Him closer, like I couldn't stand even an inch of space between us. There was nothing rushed about it. No drunken fumbling, just two people, lonely, unsure and aching, finally seeing each other. "Are you okay?" He whispered into my neck. I nodded. "Yeah." "Are you?" His fingers traced the side of my face. More than okay. When we fell onto the bed, it was a slow collapse. Clothes were discarded piece by piece, like the weight of pretending was being peeled away. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. The quiet was full of meaning. The way his hand slid down my back, holding me like I might disappear. The way our foreheads touched as our bodies moved together. The way he looked at me like I was something new. And for once, I didn't overthink it. I didn't worry if it meant something tomorrow. I didn't second-guess his intentions. I didn't make a list of all the ways this could fall apart. I just let it happen. Because when he held me that way, when his voice broke on my name, when I whispered his back, I didn't feel guarded. I didn't feel practical. I didn't feel afraid. I just felt wanted. And for the first time in a very, very long time, that was enough. After we lay there in silence, the rain had slowed, tapping gently against the windows like a lullaby. The room smelled like skin and sweat and something unnameable, something holy. Ethan's hand was resting lightly on my chest, his thumb tracing lazy circles just above my heart. He hadn't said anything in a while. I hadn't either. But there was nothing awkward about it, just full. Heavy in a way that made my throat tight. I turned to him. That wasn't just... He met my eyes. No, it wasn't. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Okay. His smile was small, honest. Okay. We didn't say what now. We didn't make promises, but when he reached for my hand under the blanket and laced our fingers together, I knew this was no longer something I could pretend was temporary. This was the beginning of something. Something real. Something terrifying. Something good. And for once, I wasn't going to run from it. I woke up alone. The sheets beside me were rumpled, still warm, but the space was empty. My chest clenched before I could stop it. For a moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to slow the rush of thoughts already screaming through my head. What the hell did I do? What the hell did we do? The night came back in pieces. His hands, his mouth, his breath in my ear, the way our bodies moved together like we'd done it 100 times before. Only we hadn't. It was new. All of it. Real and raw and... What if he regretted it? What if it didn't mean anything? I sat up too fast, pulling the blanket around me like armor. The room still smelled like him. Like us. That made it worse. My clothes were scattered across the floor. I grabbed a t-shirt and jeans, threw them on, and padded out into the hallway, every step hesitant. I found him in the kitchen. Of course I did. He was barefoot in the same hoodie from the night before, back turned to me as he poured coffee into 2 mugs like it was just another morning, like the world hadn't shifted on its axis in the space between night and day. "Hey," he said without looking up. "You want one?" "Sure," I said, but my voice cracked halfway through. He glanced over his shoulder, gave me a smile. Easy, casual, too normal. My stomach dropped. I took the mug when he handed it to me, careful not to let our fingers touch this time. He didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, and just didn't care. We stood there in silence, sipping coffee. The small kitchen felt suddenly too big, too quiet, too bright. "So, sleep okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied. "Good." That was it. Not a word about last night. Not a question, not a look, not a hint that anything had changed. He leaned against the counter, sipping like this was any other Sunday morning, and I I wanted to crawl out of my skin. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at my mug like I could read the answers in the coffee. My chest was tight, my throat drier than the coffee could fix. I shouldn't have let it happen. I knew it last night. Hell, I knew it the minute his lips touched mine, that it was dangerous, stupid, temporary. I should have kept my walls up. Should have known better than to believe the way he touched me meant something. Because this felt like the part where he pretended it was nothing. Like it hadn't rearranged everything inside me. I couldn't take it. "I'm gonna go get dressed," I said abruptly, setting the mug down. He looked up, brows knitting. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said again, and this time it sounded even less convincing. I didn't wait for him to push. I turned and walked back to my room, shutting the door quietly behind me. Once alone, I sat on the edge of my bed, elbows on my knees, hands gripping my hair. Maybe it was just sex to him, a fluke. Something he needed to feel less alone. Maybe it wasn't a beginning. Maybe I was just another mistake he'd pack away before he left. I'd let my guard down. I let myself hope. And now, I wasn't sure what we were, or if we were, anything at all. I spent most of the day avoiding him. I couldn't help it. My brain was tangled in a mess of doubts, half-finished thoughts, and stupid what-ifs I couldn't quiet. Every time I heard his footsteps in the hallway, I froze like I was 12 years old again and about to be caught sneaking out. Eventually, I slipped out to the balcony with a hoodie and my third cup of coffee, hoping the chill in the air would sober my spiraling thoughts. I don't know how long I sat there, legs pulled up to my chest, staring out at the gray skyline, before I heard the sliding glass door creak open behind me. I didn't look. He stepped out anyway. "You always brood this hard after sex?" Ethan asked gently. I let out a hollow laugh. "Only when I like the person too much." He sat down next to me, not too close, just enough to let me feel the warmth of him again. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that didn't beg to be filled. Then quietly he said, "I didn't mean to freak you out." I glanced at him. "You didn't. You've been hiding all day." "That's not about you," I said quickly, then sighed. "Okay, it's partially about you." He nodded, thoughtful. "You think it was a mistake?" "No," I said before I could stop myself. "I just don't know what it was, or what it's supposed to be." "I can tell you what it wasn't," he said. "It wasn't casual for me. That made my heart do something painful and stupid." He continued, softer now. "I've been trying to play it cool since I got here. Cassie told me you're not exactly open, and I didn't want to push. But I've been drawn to you from the minute we met. You walk around like nothing touches you, but I see how hard you try to keep people at a distance." I stared at him, stunned, silent. "I didn't want to make it more complicated," he said. "But last night, it didn't feel complicated. It felt right." I looked away. My hands were curled into fists in my lap. "I don't do this," I muttered. "This whole vulnerable, let's talk about our feelings thing," I noticed, he said with a smile. "But you're doing it now." I shook my head. "You're Cassie's brother. You're leaving soon. This isn't—" "Stop," he said, gently but firmly. "Forget the logistics. Do you want this?" I opened my mouth, closed it. My chest ached. "I'm scared," I admitted, "because it feels like if I let this happen, it's going to matter." His hand slid across the small space between us, rested palm up next to mine, not touching, just waiting. "Doesn't have to be scary," he said. "Not if we want the same thing." I stared at his hand for a long beat. Then I slipped mine into his. And it was that simple. He turned to face me fully, leaned in slowly, like he wanted to be sure. I met him halfway. The Kiss was softer than the night before. Slower, but somehow heavier. No urgency, no firestorm, just warmth. Certainty. When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "Not if you want me to stay." "I do," I said, and I meant it. Cassie walked through. The front door, just as the credits rolled on the second movie we hadn't really been watching. We were curled up on the couch, blanket thrown over us haphazardly. Ethan's arm was around my shoulders. My head was on his chest. We looked up at the same time. Cassie froze mid-step, one grocery bag still in her arms. She blinked once, then again. Then her whole face broke into the world's slowest, most dramatic grin. "I knew it," she said, setting the bag down like it was a trophy. "I freaking knew it. I should have put money on this." Ethan laughed. I groaned and covered my face. She walked past us with the self-satisfaction of a woman who'd just won the lottery and been proven right in the same day. "Don't mind me?" she called from the kitchen. "Just going to grab a celebratory bottle of wine for the happy couple." "I hate her," I muttered. Ethan grinned. "You love her." Unfortunately, he kissed the top of my head. I didn't pull away, and just like that, the complicated didn't feel so complicated anymore. Love has a funny way of slipping in when your guard's up. It doesn't always crash through the door with fireworks and fanfare. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly, through shared popcorn, late-night conversations, a hand brushing yours when you least expect it. Sometimes love shows up looking like your roommate's brother, with a duffel bag, a crooked smile, and no intention of staying, and then somehow, he stays. Ethan never officially said he was moving in. One morning, his bag just disappeared from the guest room and showed up in mine. His toothbrush sat next to mine. His hoodie lived on the back of my chair. It was like he'd always been there. Cassie pretended to be annoyed, but I caught her smiling more often than not. She calls us the gross domestic gaze now. We don't even argue. Most nights, Ethan still makes the coffee before I wake up. Most nights, we fall asleep tangled together like we're still afraid we'll drift apart if we don't hold on tight. I never saw him coming. I thought he was just my roommate's brother. Turns out he's so much more than that.